Hello everybody, welcome back to the stream. How you all doing? We are going to be working on some defeat screen stuff today. I've actually already started working on it, so the main problem is that there was no way to differentiate previously between the defeat and the victory in the run overview screen. So I'm working on at least adding the defeat sort of animation or visuals, I guess you could say. And so there's a bunch of stuff that I want to finish up with that. I was working on it last night, but yeah, gotta finish that up. And then we may figure out, how to differentiate it in terms of the victory side of things. So we'll have to see how that goes. But anyway, before I get into all of that, I want to remind everyone that Alka Mortis is available for wishlisting. It is a dark fantasy roguelite auto battler where you can create your own builds using alchemy. So if that sounds fun, definitely check it out. I would appreciate it. And you could also support me on Patreon. As a reminder, I'm going to be doing some more Patreon exclusive content. The latest one is the pixel art time lapse of the cathedral. So you can join for $3 a month, or if you subscribe at the top tier here for at least 1 month, I'm going to send you an Alka Mortis Steam key when the game launches. And your name will also be listed in the in-game Alka Mortis credits. And as well, the Udemy courses are available for sale. So if you're interested, you could purchase those. You'll learn how to build games in the Godot engine, and it will support me as well. All right, hello everyone. Hello Clickertail. Good morning, Ninja Link. Welcome back to both of you. Hello Emerson. Welcome, welcome. Drufus Games. Welcome. All good? Yes, I'm good. How are you doing? Okay, so let me show you what we got here. So this is the defeat version of it. So this is the defeat version of the screen. So you get defeated, you go into this run overview screen, and a beam comes down and disintegrates you, and then that's basically it. So there's a bunch of things I still need to do here. I'm going to add particles for the beam, the edge of the beam there, but I also want to, I just need to mess with the timings here for the animations because there's some stuff flying around the screen that shouldn't be. Hello, Simon William Taylor, welcome. How do you do with the vet? It's fine. Yeah, the cat is fine. Just kind of a routine checkup. So yeah, thank you for asking though. So we got to do some animation sequencing stuff in here. The main thing that's annoying me right now is that these, I don't know if you can see those, but the cards are flying out this way. So those need to be delayed some. Yeah, so we got to delay that some. We got to fix the sequencing a little bit, and then add some particle effects to the beam. And then I'm going to need to do sound effects for this kind of stuff as well, but we'll figure that out. So the problem here is that this setup boards, this is playing the drop animation with total delay. So setup boards with initial delay. Let's change that to 3. Oh, that's not going to work actually. This needs to be context.isVictory. So this is kind of a mess because I have either the victory situation or the defeat situation, and the timings are going to probably need to be a little bit different for how this animation is sequenced, and this is all being done in code. So it's not like I can just change an animation timeline or whatever. Kind of have to keep the code straight in my mind, which is not a great way of doing it, but that's all right. Okay, so that's looking better. We're gonna make this 3.5 for the delay there. So there's a lot of magic numbers flying around here. But when it comes to animations, I don't really have too much of a problem with just putting the numbers directly in here. Because at the end of the day, it's like they're not going to be used in multiple places. Okay, so that's looking good to me. I think what I will do though is I'm going to knock this down a little bit. So we're going to knock that down by ½ second. We're going to knock this down by ½ second. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, so the other thing that I want to fix is these artifacts are coming in. I don't want those artifacts to come in. So basically what I want is I want the disintegration animation to play before everything comes in, which is working for the rest of everything, but the artifacts is not working. So we've got the setup artifacts, artifact display, animate from, total delay. So right, we're gonna want the same thing here. So we're gonna want a float initial delay. Okay, so we've got our initial delay there. Actually, I don't think I needed that, but that's all right. Setup artifacts, so not context.isVictory. We're gonna do .25 seconds, otherwise 0.75. Get rid of this default value here. All right, let's see what that does. Then we can add some particle effects. There we go. So I kind of think that's a little bit cool. I mean, it's like, you know, what I was trying to impress is just like there's a spirit of this alchemist character or whatever that's just being disintegrated on defeat. I think that works. I might speed up these guys here. These defeat ghosts will make the range of speeds larger. And then once I add the particles that I want to add to the beam. Also, the beam feels a little bit sluggish for some reason. Where's the beam? All right, let's see. Disintegrate beam. Let's do 0.5. Let's see how this looks. Make it come in and go out a little bit faster. That seems to work. Again, it probably lasts a little bit too long. Let's see. Cubic out. Let's turn this down to 0.4. I think that looks pretty good. I need to add a button where I could just restart the scene right here. But I think that looks pretty decent, actually. Okay. I may change that steering force on the ghosts there as well. Yeah, let's change the steering force. That looks pretty cool. Okay, let's try it with a different character now. Let's just make sure that this looks all right with every character. Not every character, but I'll use character ID Priestess here. See how it goes. Hello, Rios. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. Okay, that beam needs to last a little bit longer. .75. All right. All right, that's looking pretty good. So once I add the particles for the beam, I may do a couple of particles. So I want to do a particle for the front of the character. So there's like, it looks like the beam is creating some kind of like splash effect. And then one for the background. And then I may do a particle system that's just kind of like sending out stuff from the center of the beam. Wonder if that would work. Let me think about that. But anyway, I think that's looking pretty good. Once I have some like sound effects in there and stuff, I think that's gonna look pretty good. Hello, Vinny. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. Finished your course some time ago, missing your voice and guidance while coding. That's very funny. Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the course. I feel like my hair is weird today. Whatever. Whatever. You get to see me in all my beauty. Hello, Junie. Welcome. Good to see you. Okay. So, tweaks to defeat animation sequencing. So now we can do some particle effects here. This screen is a little bit of a mess, but that's all right. All right, so disintegrate beam. We need, oh, this is gonna be a little bit tricky actually. Maybe I don't need so many particles. I was gonna do 2 particle nodes, but maybe I don't need that. We'll put this particle here. Let's create a new texture or a quick loaded texture. Particles, no outline. Canvas item material particles. Okay, and then we're gonna do lifetime 0.4. Change those things. Okay. New particle process material. Particle flags, spawn position. We could do sphere, 8, angle, velocity, direction -1, spread. We're gonna need to make this like pretty violent, I think. Why do I feel like that lifetime isn't working? Maybe it is. Okay. All right. We're going to turn up the amount quite a bit. Turn off gravity. I wonder why. Let me see. There's a little bit of weird stuff going on. Offset 0, 1. Color curves, color initial ramp. New gradient texture. Do 3 colors here. Interpolation constant. Okay, so this one, we're gonna want to make that white. And then that color. Oops, and then, and then this color. All right, we're gonna need to group that much tighter, but let me do the scale first. Min and max of 2. Scale curve. Okay, we're getting there. I almost wonder if this lifetime... Oh. Can I put the damping on here? Let's see, damping. Damping is friction on. Let's do min. Oh, that's quite a lot. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. All right, let's change some angle as well. Our angular velocity. Might just crank up the... do I want to crank up the amount here? That might be a little bit too much. Actually, I wonder if my scale is too much. Let's see. Don't mind me, just gotta scroll through this list of properties that's as long as the entire US legal code. All right, I think that's fine. Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's see what it looks like in game. Hello, Kelso. How's our game? It's going well. It's going well. Okay. I think that could work. I may turn down the velocity just a little bit. 250 to 400. I want it to be a little bit more flat as well, I think. I wonder if it's just changing the lifetime would work here. I also wonder if I should... Yeah. That's the color initial ramp. What happens if I do it for the color ramp instead? That might actually be better. We'll change the angle here a little bit. Instead of a sphere, let's do... Oh, a point kind of works. Interesting. Can I put this back up to 90? What happens then? You know what? I think that looks better, actually. We'll use point. Let's see how that looks. Hello, Straight Pointer. I've been watching Twitch long enough that YouTube doesn't show me your stream is live anymore. I have to remember on my own. Oh, sorry about that. Well, you can always follow Discord. Twitch also gives notifications pretty reliably, right? So, hello, G. Whittington. Welcome back. I published my first game on Steam this year and now I'm struggling to think about a next project. How did you feel when you finished Gunforged? How was it thinking about a next project? Honestly, I was very much relieved when Gunforged was done because I was ready to move on to other things. I didn't really have a clear idea of what I was going to do after Gunforged. I didn't know I was going to make this game, but You know, some of you were around when I was prototyping the next game. It was originally supposed to be like a multiplayer roguelite RPG kind of esque game, and that didn't really end up working that well when I was initially prototyping it, or at least I wasn't really executing on that vision very well. And then I was like, well, I played the Bazaar around that time and then got inspired to make an auto battler. But yeah, like I was relieved when Gunforge was done, because then it's like you could just move into prototyping a bunch of stuff. And I think that, you know, if you're trying to seriously like find a game to work on for like a year, I think it's very useful to just kind of like have a couple weeks where you're just like doodling around and like making random projects and stuff and prototyping things and playing other games too to get a feel for what you want to make. And just see like what kind of comes to you, you know, what do you get inspired by? Of course, the hard part then is committing to a project, but honestly, it wasn't that hard to commit to Alchemortis, because even when it was early on, you know, I had people like you in the stream, not you specifically, Vinny, but I think, you know, of the people watching this, a lot of people were saying, ooh, I like the direction this game is going, or I could see this game having potential, or I like the art style of this game. So it was easy to commit to Alchemortis after that. You know, I think one common piece of advice, I think from Chris Z specifically, I've been watching some Chris Z lately, is like, take a couple of weeks, like 2 weeks max, and create like a nice little demo prototype of a game you want to make and throw it up on itch.io as a free game, and then see what kind of response you get there. And typically, if you get a good response on itch.io, then making a full version of that game would be somewhat commercially viable on Steam. So I might do that for my next game, actually. I might, after Alchemortis, I have an idea for a game that I want to make. I might just do like a quick 1 or 2 week demo, build like almost like a game jam, throw it up on itch and see what happens. But yeah, hello, the malicious rabbit. Welcome, welcome. I have the opposite problem. I keep getting new ideas before I finish my first commercial project. Yeah, love me some Chris Z. I think he's my favorite person to listen to if I want to listen to some game dev podcast. Yeah, he's very, very insightful for sure. Very insightful. Okay, so let's grab those beam particles. I need to set those beam particles to emitting false in the ready method just to make sure that they're not there. So I've mentioned this before, but like if I'm setting up a scene where the visibility of something is dynamic, so for example, these beam particles, these are not supposed to be emitting until after a certain point. What I will do is I will reinforce the default state in the ready method. So if they're supposed to be off by default, I'll make sure to write that into the ready method, even if like I turn off the emitting here. And the reason for that is because I routinely go into these scenes and I like toggle things on and off just to see what they look like. And if I'm relying purely on the scene state to manage like the initial state of my animations or my sequencing or whatever, I may come in and inadvertently flip a flag and then save the scene and then like close it. And then when that scene pops up during runtime, it's like, oh wait, that effect is playing before it should be. So when I have a sequence of things that's supposed to happen, like as part of an animation, I just like to reinforce the default state in the ready, because then it avoids those kinds of issues where I go in and I change one thing, like the emitting property or the visible property on something, and that, you know, that could break things. It's a personal preference, but I think it's a good idea just like to reinforce your defaults in the ready method and not strictly rely on whatever you've configured in the scene tree. I feel like 90% of game dev podcasts are just small conversation. Oh, that didn't work. Small conversation, and 10% is actually usable information you can apply to your own projects, but Chris, C podcasts are like 90% useful. Yeah. I like listening to game dev podcasts too. Sometimes there, like you said, there's some nuggets of information in there, but yeah, Chris Z is definitely useful. Definitely useful. Having too much ideas and also knowing that knowing that I have experience to create any kind of project. Yeah, it can be a little bit overwhelming to figure out what you want to do. I have 2 ideas for a game that I want to make after Alchemortis. Actually, I guess 3 ideas. There's a part of me where I'm tempted to make Gunforged 2 and to actually like fix all of the problems with Gunforged and to like fully realize its potential. But yeah, I don't know. The other thing though is like I don't know if it's worth making a sequel to a game that wasn't super good to begin with. Like I might as well just like if I want to make a similar game, just like make it a different game entirely, even if it has similar mechanics. But anyway, that's thinking too far ahead. We got to figure out how Alchemortis is going to do first and then go from there. So the other question is, I don't know if I should put like some defeat text or something here. I just had a different idea as well. Anyway, I think that looks pretty good. That sequencing works well. And then if I change the context here from is victory to true, I just want to make sure that the animation is still good from that perspective. See, it's not good. I got to make sure that beam is not visible. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Disintegrate beam dot visible equals false. Prototype different ideas. A new Godot Wild Jam is starting tomorrow, I think. Probably join. It's good to have restrictions. Yeah. Is that right? Necromancer. Hello, Asterisk. I spent the past 11 years prototyping several game ideas, but always hit some kind of wall, usually image assets, as I'm not a good artist or can afford to pay one. I did just this week push my first game to Steam, so that's a big accomplishment for me. I went with Sad Console for my assets. Sad Console? But yeah, assets can work for sure. I think one of the games that I want to make would be 3D. So I have one idea, which is a 2D single-player extraction shooter. And the other idea is more of like a 3D... I hate to use the word Souls-like because it's not really going to be like a Souls-like, but it's going to have like, you know, combat with stamina management and dodging and parrying and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I'm very eager to get to be able to prototype those, but can't do that just yet. I feel like this fade in is not working properly, but maybe it is. Or maybe the sequencing is wrong. Maybe not, though. Do I need this line? Oh, I guess so. All right, well, I think it's fine for now. I can always tweak things later. I feel like that takes a while to fade in. Why is that happening? What happens if I do character tween.set parallel? Will this work better? Okay. I love the Godot WoW Jam. I don't think I'll do this one because I'm in the Oink Jam right now. The Oink Jam, make a pig game. But I'm partnering with another dev for a commercial project. And we are considering prototyping this in this Godot WoW Jam. Very nice. Like the game, I wish you just use more colors. I know you want 8 colors only for pixel art, but you could have used 8 different color palettes for background color. Use different. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. Sorry. If you don't like the colors, then the game is not for you. I mean, I probably will add like palette swap options, but yeah, I'm not changing it. So, hello, David Martinez. Welcome, welcome. It looks nice, but I think the 2 menus should appear later. We could do that. Hello, Sammy. Welcome to the stream. Worst case scenario, I bet that Alchemortis will be a silver tier in CZ's benchmarks. Yeah, maybe. I hope not. I hope more than that. The design of your Alchemortis cards looks great. I've always loved dark fantasy, and your style with the choice of color palette gives great atmosphere. Thank you. Thank you, Keltis. See, this is a perfect example of like, you know, you can't please everyone, right? Like, so Keltis says, oh, the style and the choice of color palette is awesome. And then Drufus says, you should have used more colors. I think that's just going to happen in every game, right? Like there's going to be aspects of it like that just don't appeal to some people, that don't look good to some people, that don't feel good to some people. It's like, yeah, I can't make the game for everyone, you know? Can't make the game for everyone. So that's kind of where you have to just like use your judgment as a developer and be like, what am I going to do here? You know? Every decision you make is going to alienate somebody. But that's just how it goes, right? That's how it goes. Steam's audience is a crazy thing. I think that Alchemortis will benefit a lot from discovery queues. Yeah, I have a marketing plan that marketing effort is going to start relatively soon. So we're going to see how that goes. And hopefully it goes well. And if not, then I will cry myself to sleep at night and go back to work as a 40-hour per week normal worker. The duality of man, yeah. I meant that the different elements could have different palettes, not more overall for different elements. Yeah, I know what you meant, yeah, but that's still more colors. Starting game dev 2.5 years now, studying AAA mechanics. Very nice. Back to NPC life, yeah. Okay, so that's fine. Okay. So somebody said make the to menu appear later. Yeah, so I need probably a sequence delay in here. Let's grab the sequence delay. Yeah, we'll put the sequence delay here. Or maybe we'll just drop it there, why not? And then we'll do 1.5F plus sequence delay. Let's see what that does. No need for the marketing effort. I've already told my dog and my grandma about Alchemortis. Expect a big wishlist boost, thank you. Hello, Wooius, welcome. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. All right, so I think that's feeling pretty good. Now, the other question that I have is, well, let's see what that looks like actually in game. So let's go to the training dummy. Damage to 100. Do I have training dummy enabled? I do have to playtest. I made a bunch of changes to how the combat balancing works. And I'm thinking maybe the map is still too big. I may cut these regions down by like another 25% or something. I don't want the runs to be super, super quick, but yeah, I don't know, because there's like a balance, right? Like the player needs to have enough time to be able to get to that like absolute stomp of a build, but ideally I would want the game to end shortly after that period of time. Because the problem is when you get to a build that absolutely stomps everything and you still have like 30% of the game remaining, that can get very boring, right? So I want it to be like a constant, like, you're constantly making improvements towards it, but the combats are still difficult, and then like towards the end of the run, like everything clicks into place and like, you know, you start destroying things. I don't know. It's hard to balance all that stuff. Anyway, let's see what it looks like transitioning into the game here. So if I die and I end my run, yeah, so that looks a little bit weird. I may need to fade in that ghost as well. Fade in the defeat character ghost. Probably want to show some defeat text as well. That looks pretty good though. Oh, I don't know. Did I show you guys this screen? I redid this screen so it's not so open now. I'm gonna need to edit this some more because it's like not finished, but you've got all your difficulty selections here. Oh, that is not working for some reason. But there's all the difficulty modifiers, and then you can select a character. Got your starting artifacts. It's just a little bit more, I don't know, segmented, I guess. So just test the full loop here. Cool. All right then. I don't know what your plans are, but I think Alchemortis will perform much better than Gunforge because of its appeal and genre. I truly hope that's enough for you to keep as a full-time dev. Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, me too, but we'll see. I think, I do think, like I'm tentatively, I don't want to be like overconfident. I don't want to be presumptuous, but I'm tentatively confident that Alchemortis is at least going to do much better than Gunforged, which would be nice, but we will see. Thank you, Ninja Link, for the Prime subscription. Very much appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. Have you considered dynamic difficulty adjustment? Yeah, I have. I'm not going to do that because like eventually players are going to be able to share run seeds, and I may do something like a daily run where, you know, like every player like essentially plays the same map, like a daily run with a daily challenge or something. And if I did dynamic difficulty during the run, then that would defeat the point of the seeds. Now I could remove, you know, I could remove the seeds entirely, but I also feel like it shouldn't be necessary to do dynamic difficulty, but we'll see. Oopsie dupsie there. The one dude like my precious with the hourglass, yeah. Hadn't seen the screen yet, that looks awesome. Are those custom starting boards I see? Yes, yeah, so it shows you all the information. Obviously I have to do a lot of like design work on this stuff, but abandon run. Goes right to the defeat from the abandoned run. Go to the menu. Oh, is that? What if I can click the menu multiple times? But yeah. So you got your difficulty modifiers, character. So it shows you everything about the character. So it's got the character name, and then that's the character starting board. The characters can have different starting board sizes now, which I think should differentiate them a little bit more. So Brittle Bones, he has got 1 health, but he's got a much larger starting board by area than everyone else. The Priestess has, what is that? 8 cells. The Necromancer has 9 cells. So the Priestess has a little bit fewer cells, plus it's like, it's got an odd shape. And this is going to be, I think, especially interesting now that the board size increases are not, like the board size increases are not random anymore. They're very predictable. So when you go into the game, I actually don't think this will work, but typically like in this grouping of 3 here, do you see how the map, like it widens out and then it narrows to like these 3 nodes and then it widens again and then it meets into the stronghold there. So these 3 nodes are always in the middle of each region, and those are the board growth opportunities. So you get guaranteed board growth choices at the beginning or in the middle of each one. Now, I don't know if 3 board growth opportunities is enough, But the problem is growing your board is such a powerful thing that it wasn't feeling good if it was left up to RNG for the most part, because either you would get really powerful because you'd get really lucky, or you would not be very powerful because you'd get really unlucky. So making those more explicit, predictable upgrade events, I think is going to be good, but I just don't know if three upgrades is enough. But it might be, you know, like, I don't know, because again, we were talking about like, how do we get the player to use alchemy and how do we get the player to min-max their build? And I really do think that the space pressure on the board is going to be a big component of that. Like, if you only have 3 upgrade opportunities for your board size, then you are going to have to, you're going to feel very pressured to like make the most out of that limited space versus, you know, like the previous versions of the playtests, you know, you could just expand your board size quite substantially and then, you know, it would, you could just throw a bunch of cards onto it and that would just increase your power automatically. But now that the board size increases are rarer and scarcer, but they're also more predictable, I'm hoping that creates a more, I'm hoping that, number one, it creates more opportunities for your build because you have more space, while at the same time providing that constraint that forces you to like squeeze as much power out of your limited board space as possible. So we'll see. We'll see if that works, but everything is subject to change still. Subject to tweaking, subject to change. GitHub with this jam project is being such a pain. Sorry to hear that. You could even display how much the enemy is buffed as a threat level to the player, as in the player is such a threat to the common folk that they try harder and harder to stop him. Yeah, that's a good point. Every time I open Godot, it wants to re-import all the assets and change the imported IDs of everything. You're supposed to commit, maybe you're already doing this, but I think you're supposed to commit the import directory. Or wait, what are you supposed to commit? There's one thing that you're supposed to commit. Oh, there's no import directory. What am I talking about? You're supposed to commit, oh, the import files. Yeah. So I don't know if that's what's happening with you, but yeah, you're supposed to, these are supposed to be in version control, I think. I have like 50 change files. Oh, interesting. Even though I haven't touched anything. Interesting. What is the transition time from main menu to the character select? Is the transition time from the main menu to the character screen arbitrary? Is the transition time from main menu to the... Is it arbitrary? No, it's not arbitrary. I don't know what you mean by arbitrary, I guess. Like, it's a fixed number. It's like there's a 1.5 or whatever. I think it's actually like 3/4 of a second or something. Transition over. So it's not arbitrary, but I just chose a number that felt good, if that's what you mean by arbitrary. But it's a defined number. What is the average time for a run you're aiming for? I think close to an hour is probably good. Because again, like, because this game is very strategy heavy, like, there has to be enough time for like the decisions that you make to fully come to fruition, right? There has to be enough time for players to like actually be able to create a build and like make good choices about the build and then see the result of that. And I think if the game was too short, you wouldn't get a whole lot of that, right? Like, there would not be enough time to, you know, create that perfect item with the alchemy system. But if the game is too long, then I think that could just risk becoming boring, especially if your build is like super strong and you basically don't need to do anything anymore. So I gotta get to that like nice point where like by the time you're approaching an hour, like, you should feel really good with your build. Maybe you're making a couple of tweaks and then you beat the final boss, then it's over, right? This is the first project where this has happened. I wonder if my partner has a different OS or something. Oh, maybe. Or a different version of Godot. Have you checked that? That you're both on the same version of Godot? All right, so the other thing that I want to try is, I don't know, is it worth trying to fit like defeat or victory on this screen, do you think? I don't really have a whole lot of room. Good idea. I don't know what version he's on. I think it's worth it if someone takes a screenshot. You want to know if they won, right? Where do I put that text, though? That's the thing. I've got the artifacts here. So I think typically like defeat victory would be like up here, but the problem is the artifacts are up there. And I want to keep... So this kind of shows you what your final build was. Actually, I wonder if I should do the same thing that I'm doing with my character select. So I wonder if I do this kind of like panel view like this, where I've got the left panel and the right panel. The problem is that the player inventory board could actually be quite big. So it may stretch the panel outward. But if I did something like this, where you've got panels on both sides, you've got like your inventory here, you've got your combat board there, you've got a third panel here. I could just put the artifacts like over into that left panel. So if I look at my character select, I could do something similar where I've got like, you know, these little headers. So here's your artifacts and here's your combat, and then the player combat board could be over here. The problem though is like, yeah, the player combat board is not going to be a predictable size, so that may throw a wrench in things. I don't have to keep the centered layout either. I mean, I like the layout being centered here, but there is a lot of room over here, and there's not a whole lot of room over here. I almost wonder if I could... Well, I don't know. The other thing I could do is I could animate all this in. Animate all that in and then have the panels shift in. So I have the panels both on the left side, I guess. And then just push this over to this half of the screen. So center it when it's playing the animation, but then when the panels slide in, slide this whole thing over as well. And then the panels can just be... Yeah, I don't know. What happens if I make that... I'm not really concerned about the height because I can add scrolls to it. Can add scrolling to it. What I am concerned about is the width. If the player board becomes ridiculously wide, so let's do 15, for example. I mean, that shouldn't even be possible, but I don't know. I don't know what to do about this. Might have to think about that. Are the numbers at the bottom just the placeholders? I don't see a bleed damage number there. Yeah, those are placeholders. I haven't I'm not actually collecting enough statistics to show that. Where is that even? Oh yeah, I'm not actually, because bleed is physical damage, so I'm not actually tracking bleed damage separately from physical damage. Bleed stacks applied though. Yeah, I'm not tracking. So bleed is physical damage when it triggers, but I actually don't have any tracking of statuses applied here either. So yeah, it's just placeholder, but the idea is that that would be your total end of run stats there. Looks great. Thank you, Nicka Potato. Thank you, thank you. Maybe defeat victory at the top with artifacts being underneath the text. Yeah, I mean, I could do that. I'm just wondering if it's worth like restructuring this whole screen. Because I could put defeat text up here. Or victory text up here. And then if I moved these into panels, I could just I could add headers to them. So I could say, here's your final inventory, here's your final combat board, here's your artifacts. And then your final stats as well. Actually, I could probably make that look pretty good, I think. Because what I could do, so if I shifted everything over to the right, I can make a larger panel. The inventory board, this is not going to change in width. So the width here is a known amount. So I could put the inventory panel there alongside the statistics panel. And then put the artifacts above. And then move this underneath it. And then this would be shifted over to the right. And we could say like defeat or something. I don't know. I don't know. That's going to be one of those things where I maybe have to take a screenshot of this and like move the pieces around in Sprite and see how that would look. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Really like the portal spiral. Thank you. You can move the stats to the left as a scrolling panel so you can contain more stats and place victory defeat at the bottom. Yeah, that could work. That could work. Have you considered making a separate stats screen to pull all the technical info while keeping the main scene pretty? For this screen, I haven't considered that, no, but I think maybe that could work. Yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that. I don't know. It's tricky. It's tricky. What is this sweet Obsidian plugin? It's called Kanban. It's called Kanban. All right, well. This is one of those things where I'm not going to solve this on stream. I'm going to need to play around with it, but I think there's improvements that can be made there for sure. So yeah. All right. Well, we got to find something else to work on then. I'm going to be done with that screen for now. I'll just play around with the layout of all those items, I think. Do need a way of transitioning from the final boss victory to that screen. I almost wondered too, like, actually... So when you beat the final boss, right now what happens is you get a little pop-up that says you won, and then you can like dismiss the pop-up so that you can inspect your build. But now I'm wondering if it would be... So the whole reason for that is because players wanted to be able to inspect the final combat log after the boss fight. I wonder if I should just bring that final combat log over... Yeah, see, I don't know. Should I bring that final combat log over? It may also be useful to bring over the board that you lost to if you're dying. Bring the combat log over, and then also... Yeah, I don't know. What website are you using to keep track of tasks? It's not a website, it's an app called Obsidian, and it's got the Kanban plugin. It's just a totally local app. This board is saved on my hard drive, so it's not online at all. Anyway, we gotta figure out something else to work on. A lot of the stuff that I have to work on is like bigger things. Hello, Alex. Welcome. Good to see you. New boss. Yeah, we do need to do some new bosses, but I love Obsidian. I've been replacing a lot of proprietary software and cloud subscription tools with open source and self-hosted alternatives. Yeah. Yeah, I did the same thing a year or maybe 2 years ago now. So yeah, it's nice. You know, I think it's just nice to have ownership of all your stuff and not rely on somebody else to be a custodian of it. All right, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take a quick 3-minute break, and then when I come back, we'll decide what to work on. I kind of want to do another artifact. Why is this like duplicated? Anyway, so I'll be right back and we'll figure out what to work on. And yeah, BRB. Okay, I'm back. Dual artifact idea, Lucky Horseshoe. Allied items gain 10% critical chance. After 8 items have executed, this artifact becomes the Unlucky Horseshoe. Interesting. Unlucky Horseshoe. Allied items lose 10% critical chance. After 4 items have executed, this artifact becomes the Lucky Horseshoe. That is an interesting idea. Just having it constantly flipping back and forth. Would that work? I don't know if I would be able to do that from a technical standpoint. I mean, maybe I could. Let me think. Yeah, from a technical standpoint, that would be a little bit difficult. I'll write it down. But I'm going to need to think about that. Okay. Health upgrades no longer increase and instead apply damage buff. Interesting. Track blood spent, offer bonuses. All shielding applied is increased by 1 per 25 max HP. This one's not relevant anymore. Add extra ability slot to 1x1 items, but increase affected item turn cooldown by 3. That would be an interesting one to do. The question is, how would that work? This song sounds like Rest in Peace, My Granny, She Got Hit by a Bazooka. Whatever you say. Whatever you say. Let's try this magnifying glass. I actually don't know how this is going to work, because there's a couple of problems here. So one, it needs to add an extra ability slot to 1x1 items always, but how am I going to do that? I'll have to look at the code, I suppose. I think it should be possible. I'm just thinking about, let's see. Bonus ability slots. What is this? I think I would just do this. So on acquisition, so when I take that item, what I would do is increment all of the 1x1 items, add all of the 1x1, add 1 ability slot to all the 1x1 items, and then every time I acquire a new card, or every time a new item is presented. Yeah, okay. I think it should be possible. So I just increment the bonus ability slots whenever. So when it's acquired, I need to iterate over all of the 1x1 items. And then when I get a new 1x1 item presented to me in any context, that needs to add another slot. And then I can project a turn cooldown modification ability. Okay, that should work. I think it will be okay. And the nice thing too is that should automatically be saved. So as long as I'm just incrementing this bonus ability slots, that should go straight to the save file and it should be all right. All right, let's see how this goes. Let's see how this goes. So it'll probably be easier. Is there a reason why I can't rotate this? What in the heck? Okay. No, that doesn't look good. Maybe I shouldn't draw it at an angle. Maybe I can. Let's see. This is not going well. Okay, this is not going well at all. We are not going to do it that way. If item is 1 by 1, do you encrypt the games you put on Steam? No, I don't encrypt the games, no. How am I going to do this? Whatever, I'll just make it... I'm just going to not make this super complicated. I'll just not make it super complicated. Okay. Oops. This is hard. Let's see. Oops. That might work. Yeah, we'll see. Okay. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about this other than we're drawing a magnifying glass. I don't really know what to say in these, like I said before. That is not 3 pixels away, so I'm in trouble here. So it needs to be 3 pixels away from the border. Yeah, I think that's fine. That's probably all right. Is this one? Yeah. We're good now. Okay. I think that'll work just fine. So we've got that. Let's create the artifact resource. Perchance the pommel's a little too big. Yeah, I mean, I think it's all right. Magnifying glass. Art, copy this. Paste that as unique there. Edit region. Grab that. Description. Maybe I'll make this consistent. I don't really like this. I wonder... I should probably make this configurable in the code. Okay. So having to support translations is making this a little bit more unwieldy, because instead of putting this 1 second here, let's say that I just want to change this number. Well, if this is just baked into the raw string, then I would need to change the translated strings as well. But if I could do something like 0 instead, and just dynamically supply that number, that would be great. Because then I could just change the number in the code, and then the translations would already account for that. But it's okay. Anyway, so... magnifying glass. I should have an on acquired here. So public override private bool is acquired. Private record state bool. Okay. So new persistent state. Okay, I think that's correct. So I need to save that too. So I need to save the first time that it's acquired, so that way when the artifact gets recreated from a save file, it's not adding an additional ability slot. Public override void on acquired. So we're going to want var player board. Let's do var player combat board is equal to context helper dot board manager dot var player inventory board. Okay. Var candidate cards is equal to, let's do list base card. Cards is equal to player combat board dot get board inventory component. Get cards on board. Okay, so we've got the candidate cards there. Candidate cards is equal to candidate cards dot where card dot card definition resource dot dimensions is equal to vector2 I dot 1. Okay, for each var card and candidate cards, increment bonus ability slots, and then we're going to say is acquired equals true. And then in here, if is acquired, we'll just return out of that. So basically what's going to happen is this persistent state, this is the way that I store arbitrary data in the save file. And so for every artifact, I can optionally store basically whatever data I want. So I usually just create a state object, so that way if I need to add more properties to the save file, I can. I could just store the bool directly, but that's not super flexible. So I have this persistent state object. The first time I acquire the artifact, this is going to be false. So it's going to go through this step, increment the bonus ability slots, and then it's going to set is acquired to true. And then when I go to serialize the state, I'm creating a new state object that sets is acquired in the state record to that bool. But then when I'm restoring the state, this is what gets called this setter. So it's accepting the state from the save file, and then I'm setting that private is acquired to the value of the state is acquired. And that should happen before onAcquired is called, I believe. Base artifact. I think I have like a from save model here. Base artifact. Do I have like from save? Yeah. So from save model. So this is coming from the save file. If there is a persistent state, it will deserialize that persistent state. So this from save model is happening where? Yeah, so it's happening before the artifact is added, which is when the onAcquired is called. So that works. So now it's just a matter of whenever a new card is acquired. Do I have a method for that already? Where is this called? Yeah, so I have this modified card. I think this should work if I just do this. So if I do public override void modify card, base card, we'll just say if base card dot card definition resource dot dimensions is not equal to vector2 I1, and then we're just going to do base card increment bonus ability slots. I think that should only be called once. Okay. Is that it? Is that all that I need to do? Project settings. Let's turn off the training dummy. Oh, you know what? I probably need to do this as well. Let's create a new private void is card valid for bonus, I guess we'll call it. Thank you, AI, for the suggestion. Base card. We're going to return the dimensions is equal to vector2 I.1 and not card.has tag card tag dot reagent. That's a bool. And then in here is card valid for bonus. Okay. We don't want to update the reagent items. I also need to add the cooldown increase. But I'm kind of wondering, how does the giant mushroom work? Add cards to overflow. Combat reward cards. Yeah, the problem here, shoot. I think I need to... I think I need to call this here. Yeah, I don't think the artifact card modification is happening when I add the cards to the overflow. So I think I need to do that. Okay, let's see what happens. Test player artifacts. Magnifying glass, and then what? I think that's fine. Oh, turn off the training dummy. We build the translations. Object reference not set to an instance of object. Do I need to build it first? There we go. So we should see the translation. Okay. All right, let's see what happens. If only we hadn't made that tower babble all those years back. Yeah. That's true. Magnifying glass. Okay, so if I add now... Oh, I don't think it's going to work through my cheats either. I need a more centralized way of... Create more centralized way of modifying player cards with artifacts. Modify card. Because the problem is that I've got all these different places where I could be gaining cards, and I need to call that artifact manager modify card in every spot. I'm almost wondering if... Let me just do some investigation here before I test this explicitly. So find all references. So modify card, this is called in the card loot table. Why is this here? Pick card with ID. I almost feel like this pick card with ID should go away. Well, I guess I can see why I was doing this. Because that calls the modify card there. I actually don't think that that should be doing that though. I also don't really want to call the artifact manager here. So I think what I would do if I was going to clean this up is I would rename this to modify player card so that it's explicitly only affecting cards that are marked as owned by player. And then what I would do is probably, this is like the central, these two methods are like the central place. I don't know why I have these two methods. Anyway, this is like the central place. This card factory is the central place where all cards get instantiated. So I think I would probably have to do the modification here, because then it would just be like anytime I add a card that is owned by the player, it's just going to pass through that artifact manager. The problem is I don't know if I really want to do that. Yeah, I'll need to think about that. Anyway, so going back to the problem, if I add a 1/1 card here, that's not going to work because it bypasses any flow where it would have a chance to modify the card. So, but let's just see if we get a 1/1 item here. We did not. Okay. We'll just keep redoing this until I get a 1/1. There we go. Okay. So the bell got an extra ability slot. So I'll worry about that modify card later. What I'm going to do though is I still need to add the composed ability. Self-turn cooldown modification. Const int cooldown penalty. Let's do this actually. Private read only. Public magnifying glass. Composed ability is equal to this. And then we're going to do composed ability dot set is hidden to true. Actually, maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe we'll just do I don't really like how a lot of this artifact system is working now. I may redo it, but Gauntlet. Oh, because this is not translated either. Son of a biscuit. The main problem that I'm having is that I actually don't have a reference to the custom resource that defines a lot of the artifacts data in the actual artifact class itself. And so like, I don't know, I can't get a reference to like what the translation string is here. I think I had, okay, so I've got a couple of things to do. So I want to do this one, create a centralized way, and then where is... I had another item which is covering like the rework of that, so I can actually get a reference to the custom resource. Yeah, here. So I'm going to need to do those two things. Yeah, I'm going to need to do those two things. But I guess for now, I will just create color BB code. All right. Is card valid for bonus? I'm going to add an extra condition in here. Card.is owned by player. Okay. All right, let's see if that works. So I should see the turn cooldown increase now. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to find a one-by-one item. Hey, there we go. Okay. Increase cooldown by 1.0 seconds. So let me look at the explosive flask and make sure that's actually working. So this is 5.3 and this is 6.3. Very cool. But it also has that extra ability slot there. Awesome. Now what happens? Now let's check this out. Add artifact, magnifying glass. So what I should see is that that item gains another ability slot, but it also increases to 7.3 seconds turn cooldown. Yeah, there we go. So again, the artifacts, most of the artifacts are designed to stack. So if you get multiple of the same artifact, it just applies the effect again. So yeah, there we go. So aside from those other like secondary problems, there's nothing really wrong with this implementation here. Like this is working correctly and it will not apply multiple times on save and load. So yeah, I think that's looking good. But I am going to have to change some of the technical details of how the artifact system works. But anyway. that is done. I think that was Ninja Link's suggestion, if I'm not mistaken. So there we go. Oh, you know what? Shoot. Well, that's fine. I accidentally pushed that to the branch that I was working on. But I'm going to merge that branch anyway, so we'll just merge it. Okay. All right then. Well, I think that'll be it for the stream today. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here. So that's pretty good. We got the run defeat kind of working, kind of in a good spot. Also added a new artifact, which is always fun to do. I really do like adding the artifacts. I think they're super, I don't know, they're just super fun because there's so many things that you can do with them. It's going to add a lot of variety to the runs, I think. But anyway, you can wishlist Alchemy Mortis on Steam. The link for that is in the description below. Yeah, thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here. You can join the Discord. Everything's linked in the description, so check that out. And yeah, I'll be back here tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern, so I hope to see you there. And bye-bye for now. See you in the next one.